And here we go. We're going to do a video, a long one. Maybe not too long. I'll probably split the readings or the passages that I'm going to share today. I'm going to probably split them between two videos because it's kind of hard to go from the Old Testament reading to the one in the New Testament reading because I really like the one in the New Testament, but I also because I knew what was coming up in today's reading, I kind of already had an idea where God was going to go with the Old Testament this morning. Yeah. Today we are picking back up. Yesterday it was Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, but it also touched on one of his brothers' story. And today's picks up with Joseph in Egypt. And I'm going to, I'll drag yesterday's reading in whenever I get through with today's reading because it will be more applicable and I can kind of intertwine them in with, or let the Lord intertwine them in with how He wants me to address or share, because I'm going to put a little personal out there simply because. So today's was in Genesis chapter 39. Again, I read the ESV version. I am going to read for the video the NLT version. Again, because it puts current wording in with, and it makes it easier to understand if for me putting it out on a video. I can understand it from the ESV, but if I'm going to put it out on a video for a wide range of people that will be seeing this, I'm going to put it in easier to understand terms, just so that way. Anyway, Genesis chapter 39 verses 1, and he was about 17. He's in his late teens, maybe 20, early 20s whenever this is happening. When Joseph was taken to Egypt by the Ishmaelite traders, he was purchased by Potiphar, and note, an Egyptian officer. Potiphar was captain of the guard for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. So Potiphar was a very high-ranking official. Keep that in mind. The Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. This pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household and everything he owned. From the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. All his household affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing except what kind of food to eat. So Potiphar trusted Joseph. And here's where it gets ugly. Because of Joseph. Joseph was a very handsome and well-built young man. And Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. "Come and sleep with me," she demanded. And here goes the problems. But Joseph refused. He told her. But Joseph refused. "Look," he told her, "my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God." And he's refusing. Good for him. And it continues, and he holds his ground. She kept putting pressure on Joseph day after day, but he refused to sleep with her, and he kept out of her way as much as possible, meaning he knew what was going on, and he tried his best not to put himself in any situations with her, to be around her. I kind of wonder if with what's fixing to happen now. I'll comment after I read it. One day, however, no one else was around when he went in to do his work. She came and grabbed him by his cloak, demanding, "Come on, sleep with me." Joseph tore himself away, but he left his cloak in her hand as he ran from the house. I wonder if she schemed and she sent everybody away so that way there wouldn't be anybody around so that she could. Or I wonder how many she was already sleeping with that they're like, yeah, we're not going to be part of this. We're going to let her, because they were scared. Thoughts, it doesn't say, but thoughts. Because a lot of people, if it doesn't directly affect them, they're going to turn the blind eye, go somewhere else and avoid. So here it gets ugly. When she saw that she was holding his cloak and he had fled, she called out to her servants. Soon all the men came running. "Look," she said, "my husband has brought this Hebrew slave here to make fools of us. He came into my room to rape me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream, he ran outside and got away, but he left his cloak behind with me." Lies. Spoiled, entitled little brat. She lies. She couldn't get what she wanted. She kept the cloak with her until her husband came home. Then she told him her story. That Hebrew slave you've brought into our house tried to come in and fool around with me," she said. "But when I screamed, he ran outside, leaving his cloak with me." Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about how Joseph had treated her. Didn't get Joseph's side of the story. He trusted his wife, even though he had put everything in charge of Joseph. Things that make you go, Picks up. So he took Joseph and threw him into the prison where the king's prisoners were held, and there he remained. And he profits in the prison as well, because wherever Joseph goes, the Lord is with him, and the Lord prospers wherever he is. But you got people that see people like Joseph prospering, and they scheming and lying and manipulating, and so this story here just kind of shows the human nature, because it's in the Bible, and it shows how that Potiphar's wife was not content with her marriage. She wasn't content for her husband being a high-ranking officer up under Pharaoh. She probably lived in her own little palace away from Pharaoh, but it was high-ranking. She didn't have to want for nothing. But yet, she lusted because she wasn't content with her husband. And it doesn't say that anything was going on between them, but she wasn't happy. She thought she could sleep around and she could do whatever. And because Joseph had integrity and Joseph was respectful of the position that he had been put in, he stood on his grounds and he was not going to jeopardize or do something to cause a problem. He was not going to be Potiphar's wife's little boy toy, which is probably a lot of people. I admit, in my first marriage, I had an affair, but I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't going out and I wasn't hunting for it. It just so happened that the marriage was not very well, and I've mentioned in the videos, and I'm not going into details, but there were strong opinionated women, and my husband was up under one of them, being his mama. I got called a bee itch by my mother-in-law, and my husband actually reminded me whenever I addressed it with him that he had called me one too. I was miserable. I wasn't going and I wasn't hunting, but I was miserable. And the ones that showed me kindness, I immediately gravitated toward. This one, though, and Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. That is in verse 7. Come and sleep with me, she demanded. I wasn't looking lustfully, but I was soaking up that attention that I was getting. Back in the Old Testament time, women were objects. Women didn't really have any say so. They didn't really have any rights. And up until the mid 1900s, we still didn't have any rights until women started taking it, and now they just kind of turned it into a circus of things. But chapter 38, yesterday's reading, was talking about Judah, which was one of Joseph's brothers. And I'm not pointing, and I'm fixing to point out that it's not all just the women, but it's also the men too. That the men, and I am thankful that it shows in here that Joseph held his ground and refused, because most men, and I'm not grouping all men in the same group, but the biggest majority of men, they think with what's between their legs. Just putting it out there real and blunt. I ain't sugarcoating nothing. That is a rampant problem with men, is that they think between their legs. And unfortunately, some women have been conditioned to that, and going into my second marriage, that's what I thought was that was what love was. That's not what love was. But Judah, which is one of Joseph's older brothers, had a daughter-in-law that he arranged marriage for one of his sons. His son died because he was doing evil, and God took him home. God took him out. So he had the daughter-in-law, as it was custom in the Old Testament time. Whoever the oldest was, she got passed around to the brothers until there was children, a son in the family. So she got passed down to the second son. Well, the second son refused to have children. And I'm not going to go into the graphic details, but whenever there were the coming together of the man and the woman, he didn't, and it all spilled out on the ground. So God took him out because of that. So because Judah had lost two sons, he made the thing that he was going to put the daughter-in-law back at her father's house until the youngest got old enough for her to marry, and then there would be a son. Well, the daughter-in-law, yes, she was sneaking and she was conniving, and she tricked, because she found out that Judah was going to shear sheep at a different location. Well, she dressed up in basically prostitute clothing, and she had the veil across her face, so that way nobody would recognize her. So she stood in the gate, and I'm going to pick up 38, and I'm just going to read Genesis 38. And Judah's wife had already died back in verse 17. Some years later, Judah's wife died. So he's not married, and he hasn't anyway. Verse 15, she's at the gate. Judah noticed her and thought she was a prostitute since she had covered her face. So he stopped and propositioned her. Let me have sex with you, he said, not realizing that she was his own daughter-in-law. How much will you pay to have sex with me? Tamar asked. I'll send you a young goat from my flock, Judah promised. But what will you give me to guarantee that you will send the goat? She asked. What kind of guarantee do you want? So she wanted his ring, the cord that was around his neck, and the staff that he was walking with. Long story short, he had sex with her. She got pregnant, and whenever they found out that she was pregnant, it is. Well, no, actually, let's go back. He tries to pay for the service with her with the young goat. Well, she's already disappeared because she's the daughter-in-law, and verse 21. Where can I find the shrine prostitute who was sitting beside the road at the entrance? We've never had a shrine prostitute here, they replied. So she's disappeared. They're hunting the prostitute, which was his daughter-in-law. Didn't know it though. Just goes to show, leading with what's between your legs, because he's a little being a guy. He didn't hold to his integrity. He thought, yeah, he could go ahead, and well, it comes back and it bites him. 3 months later, whenever she's pregnant, verse 24, about 3 months later, Judah was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law has acted like a prostitute, and now because of this, she's pregnant. Bring her out and let her be burned, Judah demanded. But as they were taking her out to kill her, she sent this message to her father-in-law. The man who owns these things made me pregnant. Look closely, whose seal and cord and walking stick are these. Judah recognized them immediately. So, trickery all the way around. All because of normal that should be strictly for the marriage bed. For marriage. Whenever you're a husband and a wife, and I get that. I messed up in my first marriage. My second marriage, I was bound and determined I was not going to mess that one up. And I didn't. Got a lot of people that think I did, but I didn't. But whenever you're not content with your life, with your situations, and that just goes to show Potiphar's wife probably had riches beyond, and that wasn't even satisfying her. That she thought she needed something else, and that's what we do now. We're seeking and we're looking and we're hunting for something else. There's that little emptiness that's deep in our heart that we think that if we get more of this, if we have another relationship, or we're not happy with our husband, like and I forgot. In between my first marriage and my second marriage, while all my wild hairs were going, because I thought I was damned and going to hell, and I had lost my relationship with God, and I had those wild hairs, before I met my second one, and I honestly believe God allowed this, because I was in the process of fixing to ruin somebody else's marriage, because I was being the little heathen, thinking that I could have sex and that was just whatever it was, and being used, unfortunately, because 2 of those I got used. One, I was supposed to have went to Sturgis, because he rode motorcycles, and I got connected with him for about a week, and long story short, I didn't go to Sturgis. Then there was another one that I met, and that one didn't last as long as the one for the Sturgis one, because that one was like a one-night stand. He found out that there were motorcycle testings and things going on at a local event. I was supposed to have went with him. Guess who didn't go with him? Yeah, I got left at home. So that one, yeah. So the last one before I met husband number 2, he was in the process of getting very discontent with his wife, and he was in the process of thinking about leaving her, and God messed my car up, and I met husband number two. Messed my car up for a long month and a half, because it kept going back to the dealership, and it wasn't until I showed up with and then the lust. He lusted, I lusted, had sex before marriage, soul tie, messed everything up. But yeah, I honestly believe God allowed that one to happen so I would not ruin. I wouldn't be a homewrecker, and I wouldn't ruin somebody else's marriage because I was not content. Well, whenever you learn to sit after that second marriage dissolved, and I've shared in another one that I did not jump into another relationship, and I have not jumped into a relationship. As a matter of fact, whenever somebody looks me up one side and down the other and looks at me like a piece of steak or a toy that can be easily conquered and then tossed over, nah, y'all can just keep y'all's little in between your legs over there and don't even bother with me. Y'all gonna come at me with respect. I'm not that anymore. I have respect for myself, and anybody that comes in contact with me, and they go into the friends with benefits or whatever. They get my input. I don't shove it down their throat, but I'm like, work on you. And if God's got somebody out there, or when God decides to bring that other person in your path, then you're a healthy individual, and you've got your relationship with God where it needs to be before He allows that other one to come in. Because if you've got your own issues and you hadn't started working through your own issues, you don't need to be involved with somebody else and expect somebody else to take care of your issues. You allow God to come in, and you allow God to work on you. Don't expect somebody else to have your back and to clean up your messes. It's taken 54 years to learn that. But you know what? I'll sit with that any day. So, New Testament video. This one's already 22 minutes. Oh boy, the New Testament one will be a whole lot better. I'll just go ahead and tell you that, because I like the parable that it talked about today. So I'll talk to you in another video. Remember, God loves you. Jesus loves you so much that He went to the cross for you. I love you, even though I don't know you. Just know that I'm praying for you, regardless of what's going on. And have a good one.